Hello, Covington County. Welcome to What's Up, Covington County. And it's not going to be What's Up, Covington County. It is What's Up, Covington County. And I'm in the Andalusia City Hall today in the office of our mayor, Earl Johnson, who I could say I literally have known, I think, all my life. And
Almost all of my life.
yeah, I know. I'm just a little younger, a couple of years, but we've got pictures of both of us where we're just not far past diapers. Yeah, Earl was still ahead of me then as he is now. We came over here from WKNI today to kind of have a visit with Mayor Johnson because of a number of reasons. One of them is that I think there's a powerful story to be told about Andalusia and how it's developed, and how it's developing, and what the vision for the future is. But I also know for a fact that Earl is a pretty good keeper of some of the local history and those kind of things. And we're going to explore a few things today, but maybe we'll explore some other things at a later time about Andalusia, and not just how Earl contributed, but how it developed, and Earl's aware of a lot of the people that silently did an awful lot for this community, and he can tell their stories. The reason that we came in today, frankly, was because of what happened at the recent Chamber of Commerce banquet last Thursday night. It was a great banquet. The most stirring rendition of the national anthem I've ever heard. If you should go on YouTube and try to find it. It was done with a fiddle and acoustically, and it was wonderful. But as a part of it, I think that the highlight of the whole event, was they recognized an awful lot of people in the community and the new leadership in the chamber. But one of the things they did that was kind of distinctive is there are only now 8 people that have been honored by this. The Chamber of Commerce has been in business, 70 something years?
In the 1920s, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say 1931.
You know, John G. Sheriff, Senior,
yeah,
was hired to come here to be the executive of the newly formed Chamber of Commerce, and I think that was in 1921 or 23. So
anyway, in the course of that time, they've had a lot of banquets, over 50. And they have a Hall of Fame, a Leadership Hall of Fame, that's elected not every year, because in the 50 years of the Chamber of Commerce, there are only 8 names that have been selected for that Hall of Fame. And of course, the first one was Mr. Sheriff, J.G. Sheriff, and Solon Dixon's a member of it.
Henry Opp, a lot of people don't know the story
Right.
of Henry Opp, but Henry Opp is the man for whom the city of Opp was named. And Henry was a railroad lawyer who lived in Andalusia and was also at one time the mayor of Andalusia.
Right.
And he was instrumental in getting the railroad to come to Andalusia, which really began
Came here from Seawright.
Right, and that really turned Andalusia into the fastest growing community in South Central Alabama
At that time, absolutely.
yeah.
And
then Mr. Opp was a mayor, I think, 2 terms.
that's what I remember.
Yeah, and then Charles and Solon Dixon, of course, the brothers who were the Dixon Timber Empire.
Right. Very impactful upon the local economy, and a lot of people don't know what a global influence those people have, but they really are a big story that was never really told. They were just that way.
Yeah. And then Seth Hammett, of course, is one of the modern inductees. For years, it went without anybody being inducted, and then Seth Hammett was inducted, and then last year, Charles Ed Short was inducted.
Right.
And then,
and a worthy one he was.
Yes, sir. And then this year, me. So it's actually only 7.
7, okay. And anyway, that brought us here to today, and we wanted to talk with him about. There was a nice article written about him in the Andalusia Star News. All I can say is, if Michelle Gerlach was this kind to Earl, I want her to write my obituary. She could take an old scab like me and make him look good. She did a fine job, and she did a great job of introducing you
She did.
as well. She's quite an accomplished lady.
Well, Michelle is. We're very fortunate to have someone of her background and education and abilities and training and skills and talent in our city. You know, her father has been a lifelong publisher and editor of the Elba Clipper. So she grew up in the newspaper business, literally, and she still talks to her dad, I think, several times a week.
Yeah. And he's still sharp as a tack.
He still is doing well physically and health-wise, I think.
And I'm glad to hear that. He has been a giant in that literature, but we want to talk about a giant here in Andalusia.
Well,
and that was your daddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, now, yeah. My father was literally, physically, and mentally a giant.
A big man.
He was a big man. Daddy was one of the members of the Greatest Generation.
Correct.
And served in World War II and fought in Europe, primarily in the Germany, France, and Germany, and Belgium, and he actually was in the Normandy invasion. Went in on Omaha Beach and all that stuff that those of you who have studied the history and know about World War II know how pivotal that all of that was.
Oh, absolutely.
And at the time that he was in Europe fighting, he had two brothers in the same area of Europe, and he had would soon be his brother-in-law, which was my mother's brother, was also in the area. And so that they all fought through to the end of the capitulation of Germany and Italy, and then they all came back to America.
Just like my dad did.
And put their shoulder to the wheel and went to work.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
He was a great guy. Could barbecue chicken. I mean, that was a fond memory of my childhood. They'd have neighborhood barbecues, and we would run wild as a pack of wolves through the neighborhood, and they would gather up there and they'd cook chicken 2 or 3 times a year. And
yeah, Green Acres is where we grew up. John and I and a bunch of other
fine people other than me,
hard-headed boys out there, and a few nice young ladies as well.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But they were, all of them were good athletes. The girls all played baseball, football, basketball with us.
We didn't know what a Title IX situation was in sport. I just knew that Peggy King was a pretty good second base player.
Yeah. And it was a great neighborhood to grow up in. But you're right. Back then, they would block off that First Avenue back there in Green Acres. The police would block it off so cars couldn't get through, and they'd set up tables right down through the middle of the street, and the whole neighborhood would come.
Everybody. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yeah. And the kind of things that I don't know that the word "get away with" is the right word, but you just don't see done anymore.
So, yeah, people are so busy and taken up with other stuff. They don't do a lot of that.
Well, Earl and I were talking earlier about sports in the community, and the topic of these teams that the Andalusia Leisure Services Department came up. We were talking about these travel teams that they have in the community, and they're a great contribution to the community. And the people that manage those teams give up a lot of their time to help those kids. We're talking about how simple it was in our neighborhood. We had a travel team too. That meant that you got your glove and your bat, and if you had a ball, you got that, and you put it in the basket on your bicycle, and you rode down to the Johnson's house, or you rode over to Buddy Alderman's, or somewhere like that, and that's where you played.
Or the Green Acres team would get on their bicycles and ride over to Thames Street.
Yeah.
The Thames Street.
Go back the back way.
Yeah, Bill Palmer and Jim Purdy and Chuck Rankin and all those guys were over there. Like Eb Powell.
Yeah.
And
they had a really good team.
They had some good athletes.
Yeah. And but anyway, that was the way we grew up. And his mother, I want to tell you something. His mom was a special lady. You know how much I love your mom, Clarine. And one of the most determined human beings I've ever met in my life. Any drive that you've got to say that you got a lot of that from her. She was a determined woman.
No question.
And a good human being too.
Taught 6th grade here for 30 years. She loved teaching. She loved children.
And I say that as an introduction to Earl, because I think it's real important that we remember that kind of thing that Earl grew up with, those things that he remembers and cherishes, I'm gonna say this for you, are the reason that I think have driven you to do a lot of things that you've done as a mayor.
Very kind. My father was an agriculture person. He worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and worked with all the farmers in the community in soil conservation and water conservation, and so I spent a lot of time with him riding around in Covington County, looking at the land and looking at how terrace systems that he had designed.
They're still there too.
Some of them are still there. Many, many, many farm ponds and lakes he designed, and we spent a lot of good times through the years growing up fishing in some of those ponds and cooking the fish and all right there on the bank of the lake and eating it. I mean, some great times.
Folks, we're going to take a break right now. We're going to come back and we're going to discuss how Earl got where he is today, some of the things he's done along the path, and then we'll take a break and then we'll discuss the future. Hello, folks. Welcome back to Good News Covington County, kind of a special edition of What's Up, Covington County, with the Mayor of Andalusia, Earl Johnson. This is a start of a series. We hope that we can do this with Earl on a regular basis to kind of keep up with what's going on here in the city and keep us advised of what the plans for the future are. And we'd like to do the same thing with the city of Opp as well. I think it's very important that Opp and Andalusia work together in concert because we're now almost one big city. We're not big city, but we're striving. But anyway, we were talking about Earl and his childhood and things like that. We're not going to talk about his college years. Just say that he was an outstanding student at Auburn and at Troy, and that he's done a wonderful job contributing to Troy University, used to be Troy State, Troy University in a number of different capacities, and we may get into that. But Earl came to Andalusia, having grown up here and knew the history and the people. Earl came here with a vision that I don't think a lot of people saw when he first came into office.
Well, if you will recall that when all this came about, we had two elementary schools in Andalusia. We had East Three Knot School. Mm-hmm. You and I attended East Three Knot School
poor boys.
As poor boys, that's right. It was built and opened in 1914. Right. I tell folks I went here when it was right new.
We did.
Yeah. And then, of course, they had Church Street School, which was built after, just a few years after this. And then they both served as schools until the Christmas of 1999. Right. The new elementary school opened, and they consolidated both East Three Knot School and Church Street into the new elementary school, and left this building empty and the old Church Street School building empty. So at the time, City Hall was located where the police department is now, and quite frankly, that building was built in the 40s, or late 30s, early 40s, and had been completely outgrown as far as it was not very. It did not fit our need for a city hall. The police department was connected to it, and so there just wasn't enough room. So I went to the school board and asked them if they had any further use for this building. No. Would you be interested in if the city would take it and redevelop it? Would you be interested in donating it or conveying it to the city? And they agreed to do that. So we got the property. The city got the property for basically nothing, except that we made a promise and a commitment that if you would give it to us, we're going to take it and develop it into a modern city hall.
Right.
So we set about to do that, hired an architectural firm out of Montgomery, and started working. We took quite a bit of time and thought into how we were going to use this building. And so we worked several months with architects, brought our employees in, city employees that were going to be working here, and said, what do you need as far as facilities? How much space do you need? How would you like it set up? And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was that everyone's private office or everyone's office that they worked in every day, that people couldn't just walk off right off the hallway right into someone's
Right.
office. In other words, you had a kind of an ante room that you would go into before you would go into someone's office, because in the old city hall, just people could just walk in.
That's spelled A-N-T-E, not anti,
Yeah,
not against.
Yeah, anti Latin for for.
For.
So
You had Miss Taylor too.
no, I had Miss Chapman for
Okay.
Latin in 9th and 10th grade. Anyway, we spent a lot of time to make sure that we developed this facility so that it would be useful for a long, long time.
Right.
And I think that we succeeded in doing that. And we did it for cents on the dollar, quite
Right.
frankly, compared to what it would have cost us to have built a building just the size of this. But we never would have been able to recover the class of this building and
Oh,
the looks
no,
of it and the historical meaning that it has for our city. If it had been torn down and gone away, it would have been an iconic loss for our city.
Well, they've done such a good job of preserving the core infrastructure of the building, the wooden floors, that kind of stuff. But you've also modernized it to the point. I mean, you've got conference rooms, you've got an auditorium, you've got a data center. You moved all of your utilities under one roof.
Right.
It's from a economic or efficiency standard, I guess is what I should say. It's very efficient.
Huge step forward as far as efficiency and the amount of work that our people can get out now in
Right.
in a timely and efficient manner. But most importantly, the ability to serve our citizens.
Right.
We have places that are easy to get to, and we have people in those offices that can serve our folks and want to do that, and they have a good place to come to work every day. So it just makes you feel better when you get up every morning and come to a nice place to go to work.
Yeah.
And our folks feel that, and I hope that our citizens do. I'm told that they enjoy coming here. We have space for them. We have, as you mentioned, the auditorium, which we have lots of events in there every year. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with city government, but it's our citizens put that space to use. So,
Well, I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but one thing I remember about the auditorium was November 22nd, 1962. That was the day that John Kennedy was assassinated. Was it 62 or 63?
63.
That was assassinated, and we were both up here at school that day. And they called us down into the auditorium, and they had that one Motorola television that they had gotten from Ward Bell. and it had the worst speaker system in the world, but they brought us out of class to let us know that had happened. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember.
Well, I think I was in the 9th or 10th grade at that point.
Okay, you may have been.
Yeah.
But they brought us in there. But I remember it so well because that was while I was in there watching it. They came in and got me out and told me that my Uncle John, who lived 2 houses down from you, had died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Yeah. And but that building, that part of this building, has seen some real history. I mean, if they knew some of the musicians that had played on that stage, Liberace for one.
Well, that used to be. That was the showplace in town. That's if you had a live performance, you had nowhere else to go, basically,
right?
Except here.
Yeah, it's great. But what y'all have done here is great, and it has a lot of vision, and it does one of the things that I think that Andalusia's done under your leadership, and that is to kind of make us look a lot bigger than we are in this renaissance, as you call it.
Well, we have people come here almost every day from out of town, and they walk into this building, and if they make it up here to my office for some reason, they always comment, "What an absolutely gorgeous building." And I know you're proud of this. I know the people of Andalusia are proud of this. We sure would like to have something like this in our town. Talking about wherever they come from. I had the mayor of Montgomery came at our last swearing in for city council after the last election, and the mayor of Montgomery came down to give us to be a part of it and make a speech and be part of that ceremony. And he walked into my office right over there, and he just stood there and shook his head and said, this is so much nicer than what we've got in Montgomery, so I know you're proud of it, so.
And I know you are, but there's another part of that formula that goes, that's never said, and that's that you've got staff here that keep this building
Oh, yeah.
in immaculate shape. I mean, it's not like in a lot of places where you've got people that come in and run down the building and there's nothing ever done in return. I mean, this place is probably almost as pristine as it was when you first came.
The day it opened.
Yeah.
Absolutely, except for things, some rugs and things around, you get wear on, they're gonna wear a little bit.
Right.
But we make it our business to maintain and keep in good shape, not just the buildings that we inhabit as city officials, but all the equipment that the citizens of Andalusia have been good enough to help us pay for and provide for our employees. We spend a lot of time to make sure that we don't mistreat or misuse our facilities, and this is Exhibit A of that. Yeah.
Well, in the article in the Star News, it mentioned one of the things I remember it mentioned is that, and this was something that I think most of us in Green Acres had beat into our heads, and in my case, beaten. It might have gone in a lot easier with you, but is that you don't get a chance to make a first impression but one time.
Yeah.
First impressions count. And I know that was something that was mentioned in the article that Michelle Gerlach wrote about you in the paper, and that's true. And when we get back in a minute, I'd like to talk about some of those first impressions that you've been involved with. That's all right?
Sure.
Folks, thank you for watching. We'll be back in just a minute after a few words from our sponsors. Welcome back to What's Up, Covington County. Our guest today is Earl Johnson, the mayor of Andalusia, and we've had an awful lot of fun talking with him about things, the past and early and the not so distant past.
Yeah.
And one of the things we left the last segment with was an opinion he had stated, which is one that I happen to believe in, and that is that the first impressions really count. And I think that if I could say one of the things that you've done in your administration. By the way, Earl and I don't walk around here kissing Earl's behind. We've differed on things before, but he just does such a dang good job that I'm happy to be associated with him. I want to get that off the table. But
John, to add a little something to that, no two people agree about everything.
Everything.
In fact, my wife and I don't agree about everything, but we've been married come June 49 years.
Yeah, I know.
So you can get by some of that stuff you don't. And
Well,
and that's what we have to learn to do as a community is to disagree where there's reason to do that.
Well,
to get over it, go on.
And we have so much more in common than we do that we differ on.
Right.
And that's something we as a community have got to focus on.
My old friend Coy Jackson, whom you remember.
Oh
well,
gosh, I loved him.
Great iconic figure in Andalusian Covington
Oh
County.
man, I miss that
Other
guy.
spaces you'd have two different sides of an issue, and he would say to me, "Now, Earl, that's why they make chocolate and vanilla,
That's right.
because everybody's not going to agree on the same thing." So,
And but I just wanted that I wanted that understood. I'm not the kind of guy. If I really disagreed with Earl, I wouldn't do a hit piece on him either. But he and I have known each other long enough. If I disagreed with him a lot, we'd have a talk about it. But fortunately, it's been really pleasant to deal with you. Even when we've not seen eye to eye, Earl's been a complete gentleman, and I appreciate that. But we're talking about first impressions.
right.
I know the first impression that we have in Andalusia. If you look at the old Church Street location, Andalusia has an arts center.
Right.
The first impressions that you get if you come over here, of course, this is a beautiful building, but we've got a beautiful Veterans Memorial Park in the back.
Right.
That's a big image.
Well, that's the second thing that we did after we rebuilt this building and moved in it. As you grew up in Andalusia, with our parents had been the folks who fought or supported those who fought in World War II, and so there were a lot of veterans that we grew up. The war was just a recent past to us.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It was like last year, the year before last. I mean, your whole life as a child growing up, and that's when your parents and your uncles and aunts and neighbors, that's what they talked about, is what went on what did you do in the war, what went on in the war, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, one of the things that I really wanted to do, we really didn't have anything in Andalusia to pay tribute to
we do now.
to our veterans. So I got Ken Johnson. You remember Ken?
I remember Ken, great guy.
Ken was a
Vietnam vet,
Marine vet,
machine gunner in the
heck of
Marine
a
Corps.
nice
Great guy.
Anyway, he served with me as coach. He and I were co-chairman of the committee to build a veterans monument, and we got the input from an awful lot of people, and got a designer out of Birmingham to help us with the design of the thing, and then raise the money. Practically all of the money was raised by private.
I was going to
folks.
say that was done by private.
Yeah, I think the city put $25,000 starter in it or something like that, but well over $100,000, about 140 or 50,000, if I remember correctly, was raised
I think
for the balance of the money that was needed to build our veterans monument and our veterans park, which I think is one of the prettiest I've seen. And the location of it is in a place where you can have a quiet, respectful, meaningful ceremony to honor veterans, and you don't have traffic running around like, we had some folks who had the best intentions, wanted to put it in the center of the square on downtown. But the problem with that is you couldn't have any kind of dignified meeting out there or program out there or ceremony out there, because you'd have 18-wheelers going around in cars and people getting out.
And inevitably someone's going to blow their horn.
That's just part of it, right? So we put it back here in a beautiful place, and with what was later acquired with Springdale and all that now into one beautiful campus, it's just turned into a magnificent facility.
It is. It's almost like somebody laid it out like that from the beginning.
Isn't that amazing how that happened?
Of course, I think about the one of the things that a lot of people in Covington County don't even know is out there. There's a brick that's a special brick. Of course, my dad has a brick there, and your dad has a brick there. But there's a brick to a Medal of Honor winner, Congressional Medal of Honor winner. Those are very rare, I think, in the entire history of the United States since the war between the states, where it was a different medal. Only 1,700 Medal of Honors have been awarded.
Right.
And we've got one of those here in Covington County.
Right. There's actually a special monument there for him. Yes. And
so it's Andalusia once again is a special place.
Again, this is for the county. The whole county is involved in this. We've got the names of every Covington Countyan killed in war, in battle, in action since World War I is on that monument. Yeah.
Right. And there's some people that you and I knew.
Oh, absolutely. Classmates, friends,
neighbors.
Went to school with.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That little Green Acres community had a couple of boys whose names ended up there. But anyway, that was the start of many things. Of course, you've been involved with some other things that I think are important. You just kind of brushed over the Andalusia Elementary School, but that was an accomplishment. That new
that actually was done prior to me taking office. I took office in the year 2000.
Well, that's a good man that won't take credit for somebody else's good work.
Well, I mean, that was worked on for.
I know that was a long-term project
before I became mayor, but it's something certainly to be proud of.
Yeah.
Now, since that time,
you've added the 6th grade annex.
We did add the sixth grade academy on there, and it's really nice. And that was in conjunction with closing the old middle school and transferring the 6th grade over to the existing elementary school with the new academy for them, and then building the new junior high school,
which was
involved in that.
A beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's a tribute to the old main building there of the high school, and in keeping with the architectural flavor of that, I thought that really needed to be done, and it turned out wonderfully.
Yeah, they got a great deal on the columns too.
It got a great deal on the columns. That's right.
It's a long story there. We won't share it, but it's funny. It goes back to the story on the columns. Goes back to what it's like to be a bulldog and to be an Andalusia native and to really love the town.
Well, to make a long story short, one of the alumni, someone you know well.
Yeah, I think so.
Contributed those columns
Yeah.
to the school. So that's
And I wasn't trying to elicit that. That's just a great story about the spirit of Andalusia, I think.
well, and we, you know, we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but talking about the generosity of the people of Andalusia
Right.
and Covington County, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but just as an example of that, when I determined that we needed to build a Miracle League field here in Andalusia, and we had just finished refurbishing Johnson Park, but we still had a field that we could use as a Miracle League field, which is a field for children with special needs. We didn't have one in Covington County, and
Well, the nearest one was, I think, in Troy and then
Troy,
Pensacola or
and Dothan,
Dothan.
I believe, yeah. So it was impractical for our kids to
Yeah.
participate in these others. So we took that project on, got Power South to be a major nameplate supporter of it. But we raised almost $600,000 in 6 months to build that facility and the playground, the accompanying playground. And I tell you what, you want to see something to make your heart beat a little fast. Go out there when those kids are out there playing and look at the smiles on their face, and also the kids who don't have special needs, but they're out there as team members and helping those youngsters. It's really a sight to see.
I've had the privilege, I'd say honor, to do the play-by-play over the PA system for several games, and it'll almost bring you to tears
Well,
sometimes.
yeah.
It's a very emotional experience. To see those people, those special people, get to participate in something I'm sure that so many of them have looked at for so long, you know, and have wanted to participate in, and they're now given a way to do it, and it's really gratifying. And you know, it gives a lot of hope.
Well, so many of those children have brothers and sisters who do not have special
Right.
needs. So their whole lives, they've been going to watch brother and sister
Right.
participate in these sporting events, but they've not been able to. Now, their brothers and sisters get to come watch them
right.
participate. So
What
you
a
can
great
just
thing.
imagine the emotional
Yeah.
feeling that the whole family must have.
Well, I know, you know, I've talked with a lot of the parents at those games, and it is, they have a very, very emotional tie to what
Sure.
goes on there. And, you know, it's wonderful to see those children that they've got that are so special be able to achieve something. If it's just a home run,
Right.
it's a big deal.
Well, I say again, just if you haven't seen that, the schedule will be on our website for when we have the Miracle League games. Get in your car and go out there and watch one of those. I guarantee you'll have a hard time leaving there with a dry eye. It's a very fulfilling thing to see. Very emotional.
You were instrumental in what I think may be the biggest influx of money into Covington County from any one thing, and that's the Shaw
Oh, yeah.
expansion.
It's huge.
$250 million into Covington County. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, that's,
We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But because there's a long story.
Oh, yeah.
And it's I think the people would be interested in hearing that story because there were a lot of people involved in that. It wasn't just me and
Oh, I know,
a handful of others. There were a lot of folks that were involved in that made that happen. And had we not come together as a community to make it happen, to do the things that were necessary, that money would not have come to Andalusia, and Shaw would be, instead of building up, would have been building down. And leaving in not too many years. And now we've got them out of their own mouth saying we'll be here for a couple of generations.
yeah, I'd really like for us to talk about that, because I think that Andalusia has a very, very bright future, and it has a brighter future than a lot of towns because it's already pre-positioned.
Well, I tell people this, and as a way of, I guess, demonstrating kind of where we are. It's taken us about 15 years to get from the bottom of the mountain, and we're almost to the top now, and when I say top of the mountain, I mean as far as us becoming a community that people are now looking at about.
Right.
Let me think about putting my business in Andalusia or Covington County. Let me think about moving my family to Andalusia, Covington County. And that now is beginning to happen without us begging people to do it.
In fact, we talked about that
Yeah.
last week, that, you know, for the first time, in a long time, you mentioned to me, and I'm not, there were no names mentioned, so it's not any secrets here. You mentioned to me though that for the first time since you had been mayor, you actually had people that were coming to Andalusia.
Right.
Instead of having to go out and make the approach to them. Now we have people that are interested in coming here because what we have
And
to
of
offer.
course, we're still going out.
Yeah.
But, you know, we started out this whole session, this last segment here, talking about first images, first impressions count. My daddy used to tell me, son, pretty counts. You know, when you're fixing
It
your
does.
yard or you're fixing your house, pretty counts. Pretty counts as far as the city is concerned too, because most of the time when we get a call from somebody about their interest in coming to Andalusia, they've already been to Andalusia.
Yeah.
And they've already spent a day or two covering and looking at our town, talking to our people, and without any input from us whatsoever. We don't even know they're here.
Right.
They're out there investigating us and looking at what we're doing to see if we are what we say we are.
And we pretty much are,
Yeah.
folks.
And so the citizens of Andalusia are a huge asset in our industrial and business recruitment, because I guarantee you, these businesses come and talk to those folks. They go into their stores and ask them, how are you supported here? How's the city work with you? What's your market here? Tell me
Right.
about. And that goes on long before we even know they're on the scene.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that's in business that's really forward looking, does that. You never know that they've been there
Oh, yeah.
until after they're gone.
Well, Big Mike's is Exhibit
Perfect
A.
example.
They called me one afternoon about 4:30 one Friday afternoon and said, Mayor, we'd like to come talk to you about bringing a restaurant to Andalusia. Would you be willing to talk to us? And I said, is that a trick question? Yeah, I'll talk to you. But come to find out, they'd already been to Andalusia.
Yeah.
They'd heard about us from people passing back and forth from where their original location was. So being pretty, looking good, having a great impression is important, because we have a lot of people travel through here, and everywhere I go, people talk to me about how beautiful Andalusia is and how
It is.
impressed they are with it. So it is important.
We're far more than just the dimple of Dixie.
That's correct. That's correct.
I think we're the finest town in the United States, but I might be prejudiced. Earl, thank you for your
Yes,
time
sir.
today.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
Thank you.
We'll be back again.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you for watching.